Several weeks ago, and this is particularly pertinent in the state of New Jersey, Hurricane Sandy victims who are fighting with their insurance companies every day. You know, people who have been impacted by Hurricane Sandy have been victimized 3 times, once by the hurricane itself, next by FEMA and the federal government, and then by the insurance companies who are fighting them every step of the way. And there is nightmare story after nightmare story. My opponent in this rate made his entire fortune, his entire income, the money he's using to run for Congress, by making sure that people did not collect on their claims. People who trusted their insurance company and thought they were going to be there when they needed them, the trust ended at that point. They couldn't trust them. Now Tom MacArthur is saying to you, trust me. I'm going to go to Washington, D.C., and I'm going to protect your constitutional rights. 2 weeks ago, we exposed 2 major lawsuits against York Insurance. One of them was a Baptist church and victims of Hurricane Ike in Galveston, Texas, that had to sue to have their claims fulfilled. The other was victims of the Somer fire, the Sayer fire, one of the biggest wildfires in California history, in which hundreds of homes in this community were destroyed, and who the state of California had to sue Tom MacArthur's company to make good on their claims. I'm going to let you hear the story directly from one of the victims of that fire and York Insurance, for whom California had to sue Tom MacArthur and his company. After we exposed these tragic lawsuits, we were told by Tom MacArthur's campaign that these were just 2 isolated incidents. He forgot to tell you about the other 40 or so. I'm going to introduce you now a wonderful lady and her husband, Jodene, Finch, and Doug, who were deeply impacted by York Insurance on a very personal level, and had the courage to come out here to New Jersey to tell her story. It is compelling, it is revealing, it tells you about the man and the issue of being virtuous, trustworthy. So without further ado, Jodene, who personally was part of the tragic fire and Sayer fire, saw it for herself. I'd like to welcome her to New Jersey. Jodene?
Thank you, Steve. It's still very emotional to this day, November 15, 2008. Our life was changed forever. The fire started on the night of November 14th, 2008. I had a phone call from a friend who said, you need to see what's going on outside. We did, and it was coming towards us, but we just didn't believe that it was going to get any further. What happened next was we ended up at the local high school to sort out what we do next. Insurance companies showed up, except for New Hampshire, which was what we were told our insurance company was, AIG/York. We received a handout that we will meet you in the park, the mobile home park, that was like a bomb literally exploded. And when we can go back in there, that's when we'll talk to you. Well, that was 5 weeks later. And so we were living with friends, we were living with family. It was difficult. So, bottom line is we're sitting there in front of this gentleman from York, and he says, do you have any pictures of your home? You have to prove to us it's gone. And I said, you're sitting in the middle of mobile home park. There's devastation all around, and you want to know if I have pictures of my home? So at that point I said, come with me. And we walked a couple of blocks, and we stood him right in front of our home. That was what was left was the stairs up to the patio that initiated the front door, and said, is this proof enough? Well, did you have tile or did you have granite? He didn't even want to respond to I'm sorry or for your loss, none of it. So I said, well, we just had the kitchen redone, we did this, we did that. Can you prove it? It became like we were criminals, that we were asking for things that we didn't deserve. And I just wanted to turn around and leave and say, I can't do this. My husband and I together became a united front. We helped elderly neighbors. One of our wonderful ladies died before the insurance company paid them a dime. Her estate, I'm not sure if they ever received anything or not. but she was a lovely lady who was in her late 80s, and she just couldn't survive it. And there were several of those types of people in the park who were part of the York congregation, so to speak, that every time you said, this is what we need, this is what happened to us, this is what we had, their total response was always, prove it. Then I kept reading my policy, and I kept going, this doesn't sound right. Well, then York's agent called and says, you have your policy? And I said, yes, we do. There's no depreciation. There's no deductible when you had a catastrophic incident. They wanted to deduct the deductible, which was like $10,000. They wanted to depreciate everything you had. And this happened over and over and over again. It didn't just happen to us. It happened to all the 300 plus policy holders that were with York. But we fought for everything we got from the insurance company, and then we walked away. A lot of them said, I'm going to sue. And we said, we need to get some level playing field here. We need to go on with our lives. I didn't know Tom MacArthur was the head of York AIG. I could never get the name of the people at the top of the pyramid, ever. We're here very happily to support Steve Lonegan because he's trying to get the voice of what happened to the people of the Sayre Fire out there. And it's very important for us that that happen. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a huge issue. We've seen what happens when they have the issue of big insurance and big government getting together. Little people get crushed. And we're seeing that right now with this case. So this is not as much, it is as much a character issue because I personally don't have the heart or lack of heart to ever do something like this to people. I couldn't do this for a living. The state of California, they had to pay a $250,000 fine to California for their abuse of these victims of the Sayre Fire. By the way, none of the money paid to California went to those victims, as far as I know, which is even more ironic. Her story is compelling. It is emblematic of a wide range of these cases across the country against York Insurance. During my opponent's tenure, by the way, on the radio interview this morning, he said that these cases were after he left. This was 2008. He left York in 2010, the end of 2010. So now it becomes an issue of trust. I don't think you can trust a word that comes out of his mouth. I believe in free enterprise, in capitalism, and growing a real business. This is not my idea of a real business.
But I'd say, how dare you? How dare you put all of us through this? For what? For money? We just want to get our lives back. We paid into your insurance premiums. We paid you for a long time with the understanding that if something happened, we would come back and say, please help us. So in that instance, when he says it's an insignificant number of people who have lawsuits out there, there's a huge part of us that said, we wore down, we can't do anymore, so we're going to get on with our lives now, and shame on you. I would definitely say shame on you.
What's the one thing you would want to go through the minds of District 3 voters before they make that decision about Tom MacArthur?
That a man who has all this money was holding on to it so tightly from the people who deserved it the most, and made our lives almost unbearable. I don't believe a word that comes out of that man's mouth. Oh, you can't trust him. You can't trust him when you cannot talk to the head person of a company who has promised you certain things in the policy, and you can't even find out his name. How can you trust someone like that?